morning, everyone. I'm calling this meeting to order, and welcome to the July 2nd, 2019 West Grey Council meeting. I can't believe we're at July 2nd. However, having spent half the day with the West Grey Durham Lions celebrating July 1st, I can certainly know that we're on the kickoff to summer now. So just recognizing our Lions here, and well done yesterday, by the way. It was incredibly enjoyable for the community. So that is the call to order. We have everyone present here. We have a quorum, which is fantastic. So for a moment of reflection, would you mind standing up with me if you can for that time? Thank you. Members of Council, on item 3, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none, let's see. Item 4, closed session. For this agenda, we do not have any. And on item 5, matters arising from that closed session, that is an NA. So our first delegation should be arriving momentarily. I think they're out in the parking lot, so we can wait for their arrival. So get ready, we're having the Bantam C champions come in, and they will be getting their certificates. So with that, I think Clerk Turner, why don't I just go to a comment period, and then we'll see as the hockey players come in. I think that might just work out in terms of maximizing our timing. So for item 6, comment period, are there any members of the audience that have comments particular to the agenda? All right, well, thank you very much for that. And that took us 1 second off, just shaved 1 second off our timing. So why don't we just move along? So item 7, public meetings, there are none on this agenda. And item 8 is the consent agenda. So you have the consent agenda before you, and I do have a motion which reads, moved by Councillor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton, be it resolved that items A1 to B1 inclusive, contained in Part 1, consent agenda, be adopted as amended, and further that the authorization be given for action to be taken as may be necessary to give effect to the recommendations contained therein. Clerk Turner, could you please speak to the amendment?
So Councillor Townsend had brought to my attention a couple changes in the June 25th Committee of the Whole. Basically, on the third page, first paragraph, the third line, I had stated here, it should have been her. Fourth page, third paragraph, I had the word contacting, should have been stated as contacted. And then the 6th page under the Director of Infrastructure and Public Works staff report regarding Jim Holm, I just had the word is, and that wasn't required, so that was a deletion. So that's it, so those minutes would be amended.
Well, thank you, Councillor Townsend, for that. Any questions or comments? Councillor Shea, please.
Yes, I wanted to make a slight amendment to that as well, so if I could have that lifted for future discussion.
If it's
well, no, it's
we
not
can
that
deal with
slight.
it.
There was an item that was discussed that wasn't included.
Clerk Turner, is that something that we can address now within our procedural bylaw?
I can tell you what it is, and you can
Please.
decide. And when we talked about property standards, in our discussion, it was indicated by you that council did have the power or an opportunity to initiate actions, that it wasn't 100% complaint driven. I just wanted to have, I just wanted that. Pardon me? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. The clarity is really important on our minutes because they are representation of our action. So thank you for that, Councillor Shea. So Clerk Turner, you just have a moment to address that. Okay, and other members of council, is there any other comment, questions, or concerns? Well, with that, I will call the question. All those in favor? Okay, opposed if any? It does carry. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm just, I think our guests may be out in the atrium waiting to be invited into the chamber. So. Okay. All right. So we're just going to invite them to come in. Well, with that, why don't we just start on communications, and then I will just make the appropriate break, and then we'll deal with our delegation. All right, so on item 9, which is our Part 2 regular agenda, communications from mayor and members of council, I guess I'll start. So I did attend the RBC's 150th anniversary celebrations, both at Durham and Ayton's branch. That was incredibly exciting to know that that our financial institutions have been around our area for that long. It's very important. Also, I attended the Hanover Rotary Club's Walk a Mile in Her Shoes. I spoke, gave greetings along with Mayor Sue Patterson for that event. I attended the Touch a Truck event, which was hosted by Early On Durham, and we were able to see a lot of trucks, and many of them were built by Viking Surveys, our local company, which was incredibly impressive. Scrubs and Scopes had their golf tournament. That was the Durham and Community Healthcare Foundation, and I attended the dinner for that fundraiser. Brought greetings to the Hanover Hospital AGM. Also, it was important that I attended the Knox Presbyterian Normanby Church for their 160th anniversary. And this past Sunday, I attended at the St. Peter's Lutheran Church in Neustadt for their 150th anniversary. I was also yesterday at the West Grey Loves Canada event, as I mentioned earlier. And let me see, what else was going on? There was a ribbon cutting and opening of a new business in Neustadt. It's a food truck. I would hope everybody could get out to Seacourt's Country Kitchen. So they had their grand opening on July 1st, yesterday. West Grey is a very special place. There's always something to do, and I'd encourage people to get out, always something on the weekends. So with that, I'll just conclude my remarks. We will suspend this item, which is item 9. Members of council, as you can see, we have very eager hockey players out in our atrium, and we can invite them in. So come on in. The first 2 rows are actually over here is available, so have a seat, please. Well, I think we effectively used up our time on the agenda, and we get to this point in it. Hello, everyone. Great. Perfect. Just give a moment. Here, do you manage that? Okay, thank you for all being here. It's fantastic. We have the players and the coaches and family. Wonderful. So,
Up front here, Bill.
CAO, is this representative of everyone? Okay. Okay. Deputy Mayor, you're out of order. All right. CAO Johnson, would that be representative of everyone? Okay. Perfect. Well, welcome. We're very excited that you're here. This is a very big deal. This is a presentation that I'll be giving alongside of our Deputy Mayor, who's president of the Hockey Association, and I think it's very significant that we both hand out the certificates to the coaches and the players. It's the Bantam Rep Championship, OMHA Bantam C's Championship, and it's West Grey Warriors, and was it Delhi that you beat out on the final game? Congratulations. What was the score? Wow, that was a pretty exciting game, eh? Well done. Nail biter. I've been out to a few of the games, and they're very exciting. Hockey is exciting in West Grey for sure, no doubt about that. So with that, Deputy, shall we just go around the front? So I've got a list. Everyone's getting a certificate, and I'll just call you up. We'll start with the coaches. And if anybody wants to take photos along the way, feel free to come forward. We'll be really informal right now, and then maybe after everyone gets a certificate, how about we take a group shot out on the stairs? Okay? And that might also work out for Don Crosby as well. All right, hang on a moment. Is this is on? Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I'm pretty excited because I know many of you here, so it's really nice that I'm able to give you a certificate as well. So, with that, I wonder, do you want to hand these to me as we move along?
That's what I was going to.
Do a little bit of participation there. So the first one is for Bill Griffin.
That's the coach.
Yeah. Congratulations, well done. I'm sure that took a lot for everyone. So, is there any? Oh, perfect. She got it? Okay, well done. Thank you. Okay. Chad Brown? Oh, you're here to take, perfect. Okay. Hey, Nolan, that's excellent. Yeah, perfect.
Oh.
So, why did we do
Here,
this?
come on, get in the middle. There you go. Everybody wants to- There you are.
Any,
You
got
a
it?
picture?
Well
There you
done. Okay, thank you. Then we have Ken Caswell. Excellent. Excellent.
Anybody want your picture? I got it. I like one.
Reed's an awesome hockey player.
Coach wants one.
Okay. Perfect. Well done. Excellent. Josh Farrow. Hey, okay, now we're with the players.
No, I'm not a player. This is my dad.
It's Dad.
Oh, okay, perfect. Do you want to get around?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for accepting that. Nolan Brown. Perfect. You're back up again. Well, wait a minute. Here, I'll give you your certificate, and I also want to congratulate you. That's a pretty outstanding. Thank you.
There.
Luke Graham. Hey. There you go. And Luke, congratulations. Reed Caswell.
You'll have to load up the,
Well done.
you'll
Excellent.
have to, load up the website. We got nothing going on right now.
Okay. Rylan McDonald. Got this? Hey, how are you? There you go. And here, congratulations.
Might want a
Excellent.
picture. You coach
Yeah.
for a picture.
Austin Farrow. Hey, there you go. Again. Thank you.
Now you get turned again?
Owen Bradley. Well done.
Or bone. There you go.
Perfect. Cody Swindlehurst. Excellent. Excellent. Well done. Cole Dewar. Yep. I got the name right. Well done.
Paul. Good job, buddy.
Lucas Fiddler. Congratulations. Perfect. Cameron Voisin. Did I say that right?
Good work, man.
Voisin? Austin Griffin.
He's tall.
Huh?
He's tall.
Yeah. Hey, congratulations.
Good work, bud. Good job.
Jacob McGarry. Aaron Lindsay. Hey, Aaron.
work, Aaron.
Congratulations.
Good job.
All right, that is all. Well done, folks. Your medals are pretty incredible, and I know that it's a moment of time, but that is an incredible accomplishment. Westbury Council is very proud of you, and your community is very, very proud of you. So congratulations again. So with that, council, I'm going to ask for a recess, and we'll just go outside. Dry throat, just go outside for a photo. Thank you. I'm a little choked up by the competition here. Thank you. All right, members of council, I'm calling the meeting back to order. Thank you, Pat Morden, for taking a seat. I quite appreciate that. Okay, so we have all members of council present. Thank you very much for the recess, going outside to take the photo. That was very significant. We do have one additional certificate presentation that is very important for us to make, and it is for Bobby Kirby, the assistant coach for the West Grey Warriors Bantam team. Come on up. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Okay, well done. Thank you, team, for being here. We'll look forward to next year's results. Okay. Members of council, I have to tell you that was one of my most favorite moments to date, just recognizing the youth and certainly sport and championship. But it's all about playing the game, the results of win or lose for sure, but it's actually participating and the positive spirit of sport. So I'm thrilled with the youth and our hockey players and the coaches that assisted. So with that all done, there's a lot of flurry going on here. We do have a more serious presentation that I'm most interested in. We're just a little past the 10:30 suggested time on the agenda. This is for the West Grey Durham Lions Club. Pat Morden, who's the second vice president, unless that title has changed. There you go. I was anticipating that could be. So Pat Morden, president of the Lions Club, and this is in regards to the Heritage Bridge Garden Project. So would you be so kind as to attend the podium? And I do acknowledge that there are other Lions present. Thank you for being here. Okay. Perfect.
Gray one, the one that's obvious right in front of my face. Thank you. So I am Pat Morden. I'm the president of the Lions Club, and I'm here with Andy McGregor, who will be speaking, who is the first vice president, and with Jim Aiken, the second vice president of the West Grey Durham Lions Club. And we're thrilled to be here to update council on the progress towards building the Heritage Bridge around the wonderful, or the Heritage Park around the wonderful bridge that you replaced a couple of years ago. And we did come to council a while ago now and ask for permission to use the property, which you gave us, and we had some draft plans. And since that time, we've been turned down by Trillium twice, and now we're third time is lucky. It's been a charm, everybody, for the end of the fall of this year. And this time, we really approached the park quite differently to number one, get the Trillium funding, but number two, we really had some consultation with our community and said, what do we really want to do with this park? And John Muir, who was in the late 1800s, was the man who was really behind the whole notion of national parks and why parks are important. And he said something really interesting. He said, when you tug at a single thing in nature, you find it attached to the rest of the world. And I think that that's what parks do for cities. They really connect people with who they are and what they have been and what they can become. And this park will really honor the heritage with the railroad and all the natural landscape of West Grey Durham. And so we're here today to show you we've engaged an award-winning landscape architect from Burlington, Ontario, who has done parks, including Fogo Island. So she's done lots of wonderful parks and really understands the notion of connection to nature and connection to heritage and connection to art and culture. And so this project is a joint effort between the Lions Club, West Grey, the Art Gallery, and the Horticultural Society. And we're really pleased to be doing it in partnership. So today is for information. And happy to answer questions. The plans are not final yet. We're meeting later this month with Don Tremble, who will be working with local contractors to do most of the work, and with Virginia, the designer. So I'm going to turn it over to Jim Aiken, who's going to give us some background, because some of you might not know, because you're newer to Durham and West Grey,
Sure.
and not as old as some of us. So to give you some historical perspective on the park itself. Oh, Jim.
Originally, when they were talking railroads and that, Durham was left out. And that didn't sit well. There's a line going up through Markdale Owen Sound and another one going up through Mount Forest, and Durham was left out. Seeing this, the local businessmen approached the Wellington Georgian Bay Railway Company and convinced them to build a line through Durham from Palmerston to Owen Sound. This line was completed in 1880, and 1893 it became the Grand Trunk Railroad, and then in 1923 the CNR. The CPR was left out, and they wanted to build a line from basically this side of Flesherton through to Walkerton. Hence, they had to come through Durham, and it took a long time to get the things worked out, but in 1908 the rail line was completed. The bridge itself that we're talking about was built in 1907. At the peak, using both railway lines, there were 6 passenger trains going through Durham each and every day. It's hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah.
These passengers, there was everything, going to the city, going out west to work, things like that. Freight trains, basically, the Palmerston line was for Durham furniture. And most of Durham furniture stuff back then was shipped by rail all over Ontario and to the west. The last train came through Durham in 1985. And basically, before then, Durham was fairly a booming town, and basically when the railway stopped, maybe the boom stopped too, we don't know. As I look around here, I got some stories, and I don't see anybody here that went to Durham High School. One of the big things at Durham High School was to get down to the pool room to play pool at lunch hour. Well, if you went across the railway tracks, it was quicker than going around the streets to get from the high school to the pool room. One of the problems was the timing of the train. There was quite a few guys that had to jump off the tracks to avoid the train. And if you didn't like going above it when the train was afraid of the train, there was a walkway down below. Their boards were about 8 inches wide, and they went from pillar to pillar, but you always had to step around each pillar to get to the next board to go across. And it was quicker than going around the other way. But things like that, there's also stories about maybe the odd boxcar got burned on Halloween type thing like that.
Boy.
Anyway.
So it's an important thing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim. Oops. So this is a memorial that's in front of the Rogers Centre in Toronto, commemorating all the Chinese workers who lost their lives building trestle bridges across Canada. So we think it's time in Durham that we honor our trestle bridge. And this monument actually was built by West Grey timber framers, designed and built by local timber framers. So we're building on all of this history and culture to build a park that will really honor our connection. It's a walkway to the art gallery and our connection with art. And building on other mayors and committees who thought it was so important in 1984 that Greta Kennedy talks about going down to Toronto to fight with Hydro to buy the bridge. Hydro, I guess, wanted the right-of-way, and we wanted the bridge. And a group of women went down to Hydro, and she describes going down to University Avenue as being quite the thing from Durham. And they actually had to pay $5,000 to a scrapper so they could keep the rails that were there, because that's how much money he was going to lose if he lost the bridge. So there's quite a commitment here. And we know that bridges and parks make a huge economic impact on cities, and that this could be something that really says something very different about Durham. And we all know that the Trestle Bridge has become an important part, lighting the tree, the bridge lighting ceremony. You see so many people cross the bridge, making the park more accessible and more beautiful and more able to see the conservation area and the dam, I think will make people stop. And we're really looking at plans which will have the Canadian flag that's been donated by and pulled by the Legion to really stand out, so people will really notice that oh, there's some place to stop here in Durham. And when we were getting picnic tables this weekend, the fellow who runs the Conservation Authority said this is the first year they had to turn people away from sites in the campground. So people are starting to discover the beauty of West Grey, which can only be good for our economy. So this is the current park that was developed in 1984, and it's just tired. It's just tired. And it doesn't really speak to the quality of our surrounds or the beauty of our surrounds. And so we've done community consultation. We know that it's important to really have people celebrate what we're all about in West Grey, and this is what this park is going to do. It's going to be a living reflection of who we are and what we are and the nature that surrounds us. So these plans have been developed, and the final draft will be done at a consultation meeting at a Lions Club meeting, a special Lions Club meeting in a couple of weeks. And you can see that the Christmas tree will be replaced because it is dead. We've had it looked at, it's been topped so many times, but it will still be central to the park. And we'll have a promontory where people can take photographs and enjoy the beautiful scenery, and we'll have a stairway for those who can walk. You certainly can get into the conservation area two ways that are accessible, but just a chance to really enjoy the beauty of West Grey and speak to, if people stop, they start to get a window on the beauty in West Grey. So that's where we're at with the plans. I've given the councillors detailed drawings and the draft plans, and the mayor and Councillor Hergert and Councillor Townsend and I guessed Councillor Hutchison, who's now a Lion, will be able to come to the meeting to hear the discussion as well.
Very good.
So, as I said, the park will include a promontory overlooking the dam, the river, the mill, the bridge, the art gallery, and it will have effective and attractive lighting and seating. Interpretive plaques will be written by local historians, highlighting in words and pictures the history of West Grey Durham. It will have low-maintenance indigenous plantings that will help, again, be low maintenance for Brent and his crew, and also be reflective of West Grey. And it'll provide many opportunities just for sitting and reflecting and photos and things like that. And Lion Andy's going to talk about the next steps.
Yes, so the next step, as previously mentioned, we've submitted a Trillium grant, and we'll hear answer back on that Trillium grant before October the 15th. So that'll be the latest that we hear back, and hopefully we'll get that and be a big help for us there. Work that is excluded from the grant application can begin at any time after we, do our final meeting and decide exactly all the details. So we can start work before that. Now, fundraising will be a big part with this, with fundraising with the public. We'll have some solid granite benches and seating area in the park, which we will be selling. You can engravings on those granite benches, family names, people's names, things like that. So there'll be other plaques in the park. So we'll be selling space engravings on these plaques for families who wish to put their names in support of the bridge park. So that'll all be coming in the fall. And as well as the Lions, we have our Catch the Ace draw every week. These will be big fundraisers towards this project as well. We have the Lions is working in conjunction with the BIA for their Arts Festival, which is July 13th this year. That'll be a big part. We have a beer garden and barbecue in there, so this is another way we'll be raising money as well. Other things, we have our gift basket, which is drawn as just before Christmas. That's a big supporter. So the Lions Club is continually doing fundraising events, and vast majority of this money goes to the Bridge Project Park. Now, we can't do this all on our own with just the Lions Club. We have lots of other support around people that we need to thank to help us do what we do. Councillor Rebecca Hergert, big thanks to you for taking the lead on council's behalf and such a champion for the support of us with this project. So thank you very much for that. Also to Councillor Doug Hutchison, big thanks to Doug for his work with the BAA and the Lions Club and the Arts Festival. So thank you as well as that. Great community-minded councillors, and as they all are, but these two really stepped up to the plate to help us with this, so thank you very much. I'd also like to thank, it's not here, but Brent Glacier for all his support and his great ideas, so thanks, Brent. Laura Johnson, thank you, Laura Johnson, for your leadership and insight on how a park can help a town, so thank you, Laura. Our architect, drawing, Virginia Burt, she got great insight, opinions, input, just her expertise and architect skills. So thank you to Virginia for that. Got to have a big thank you to Don Tremble. Don Tremble has been an amazing support. Ideas, get it done approach.
Good.
So a big thanks to Don Tremble, who is a big part of this. And all the members of West Grey Durham Lions, for everybody's behind this 100%, and we're very enthusiastic and looking forward to this. As well as our partners in this project, the Durham Art Gallery and the Durham Horticultural Society, for providing so much time to our planning. So it's a real effort on everybody's part, so a big thanks to all those people as well. And again, in the fall, there are fundraising with the plaques, engraving for the park. This will be a big part, and local people can, be a big part of that and have a role to play there. So we thank you for that very much. Thank you.
And one person I forgot, it's my fault, on the list is Carrie, because, oh my God. She has been great because as CRA has set up, municipalities is able to give tax receipts, so small groups like ours don't have to bear the cost of that. West Grey has been tax receipting our donations, and I've been working with Carrie, and she's just, it's always yes from her, and that makes it really great. So I really appreciate that, and I apologize. That's my miss. And I wondered if you have any questions.
Well, I first want to say well done to the West Grey Durham Lions Club. This is a very significant project that you've undertaken, and I really like the get it done approach, and you've included everyone possible to make this project happen. So I'm very excited to see the grand opening and the ribbon cutting, and just to achieve the results of something that will be an icon in the community and will be shared by countless families and visitors alike. So this is very, very significant to West Grey. So again, I'm very proud of the Lions Club for taking this on, and I can't say that often enough for sure. So having said that, I'm just wondering, members of council, questions? And I believe there will be, starting with Councillor Hutchinson, please. Yes.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that too, that thank the West Grey Lions for taking leadership on this. It's a big project, and it's obviously one that we've been talking about for some time. So thank you for your efforts, and you people do a lot for the community, and also last night's event was well done, and I hope people appreciate the number of hours of effort that goes into these things, and the volunteers, the number of volunteers that they need to pull off some of these events. So congratulations to you. I'd just like to throw something out there, not to be the devil's advocate, but I'd like to throw something out there just so that we don't blindside anyone.
Yes.
And that is the issue around our middle dam. And so, as you may or may not know, our middle dam is up for sale. The ministry has opted to sell that dam, preferably to West Grey. We have sort of first dibs at it. We've also had some conversation with the Conservation Authority, but I'm thinking somewhere down the line, someone has to take on responsibility for that dam. If we don't have that dam, that park's going to look a lot different. So that issue's out there, and last term when I was on council, we had an individual come to us, a group come to us that wanted to put in a hydro generating station there. And we didn't do it at the time. There was some concern with, well, what would that look like and how they access and so on. But I do think for that dam to be viable, somewhere down the line, we're going to have to do something with it. And if that means putting in a hydro generating station, hopefully by that point it might be something very small, like some turbines, small turbines. Maybe that's going to happen. If that's going to happen, then that view over that dam may look somewhat different. So I just want to make this group aware of that somewhere down the line, something's got to happen with that dam, because we need that dam. And however that happens to fund and keep that dam is something that we're going to have to decide, or the future council's going to have to decide. So I just wanted to put that out there, make sure you're aware of it, that we do all this planning, all this work is great, overlooking the dam, and then all of a sudden now you have a generating station in there, it's going to look different. So I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Thank you, Doug. And I'm hoping that we can stay connected as council and Lions Club, because it's still a beautiful view, and work with whoever owns it to do something that is not an eyesore. None of us would want that at the best of times. And so I think we just have to keep that in the back of our minds. Yes, and several people on council and off council had made us aware of that as well. And so I just appreciate that you stay in touch with us so we can be early on, and I'm sure the Conservation Authority are going to be early on looking at that issue as well. So hopefully we can all be sensible. Yeah.
So well done on your comments, for sure, and certainly with respect to the middle dam, we have sent a letter of interest to the province, so they're aware that should that process begin, that we're a principal connect for it. I'm of the opinion that nothing to date has been done, other than me speaking with MPP Bill Walker and suggesting that the timing is not right for that type of activity, and perhaps the province should retain the ownership of the dam. We are looking at different infrastructure projects here. Taking on a dam would obviously be a challenge, but we're up for the challenge if necessary. But we will keep the connect between the Lions Club and this council. Absolutely, you have our guarantee on that, and we are up to date with the dam. But what I'm hoping is that there's no activity for a number of years on that, and then at the time we will address it appropriately on behalf of the citizens of West Grey. So I think that's really important that you're addressing that issue at this presentation, for sure. Mm-hmm. Further comments, Councillor Hutchinson? Okay. Councillor Hamilton? Yep.
Well, thank you for your presentation, and I'm feeling inspired. It's such a beautiful vision for our community, and feeling very thankful for your time and your effort and your commitment. And thank you for investing that here in West Grey. And thank you to our councillors who are working together with the Lions Club. So I wanted to extend a conversation with the Lions Club. I'm on the West Grey Dark Sky Committee. In 2016, a resolution was passed that makes West Grey dark sky friendly community. And so to further that commitment, committee was restored, and we've just met a few times now, and we'll be working with staff and council on lighting policies throughout West Grey to honor that commitment to dark skies. And so we'd like to have that conversation with you about best practices for lighting and just however we might partner and work together to beautify this park that you're developing.
Well, congratulations. That's a great initiative. And I just keep thinking how lucky we are to have the architect we do, who's very familiar with that. And so I'd really like to make sure that we do that. She's already raised that as an issue. And so she's very familiar in doing, well, the work she did on FOGO. So I think that's easy to say yes to and be aligned around, and because Virginia's already raised that issue.
Wonderful. So I look
Yeah.
forward to talking and learning together. Thank you.
Yes, wonderful.
Excellent connection, absolutely. So Councillor Shea, please.
Yes, great work, very inspiring. Really looking forward to having this valuable asset.
In your backyard?
My backyard, yes. I was
Truly.
I was there pacing the property yesterday, just imagining the different views. I did speak with you briefly during the break about the fact that the plaques are only accessible via 2 stairs. And there's issues with accessibility, and we explored the idea that maybe one could be a ramp. I think Rebecca
Yes,
suggested.
absolutely. We'll bring that to
Yeah.
the meeting with her.
I didn't understand, it says in a note that there's rail cuts along the, or saw cuts along the center of the concrete part. I didn't understand what that was about.
Oh, so there was a strong view by lots of people at our consultation that they'd love to see the railroad notion be visible. And we looked at all sorts of things to make the railroad look like it went to Garapaxa. So the suggestion that she's making is we do saw cuts that would then match up with, to look like rail lines going.
Okay.
So it's a concept.
Okay, so you're not actually putting steel rails?
No. We did look at that, but we're not. No, there's too many issues with maintenance and upkeep and the stability of the concrete.
So in your preamble, or in some of the documentation you submitted, you suggested that this might encourage people passing through town to actually stop because it's going to be so nice and attractive. And the question comes up, where do they stop? So in looking at this, I'm surprised to learn that this property seems to include most of the neighboring parking lot.
Well, Westway does own the parking lot.
Right. So is there any discussion about upgrading that parking lot to making it more like a municipal parking lot?
We didn't take that on.
No?
We think West Grey might buy that building and it would be a lovely little coffee shop and lovely parking, and that could be your part of it. But I certainly think that is part B.
Okay.
It has huge potential, even though it's a small space. But no, our agreement just came to the current park.
Okay, fair
Yes.
enough. Fair enough.
But it is your property right up to the building.
Okay, our property.
West Grey's.
Our property, yes.
Our property, yes.
I noticed, or I heard you talking about plaques and names on the plaques. We've had a couple of discussions here about trying to develop a naming policy and
Great.
naming West Grey assets, and it's a little bit up in the air. We haven't really finalized that discussion, so I don't know if that discussion is going to impact on your plans to sell naming plaques. Maybe we should discuss that with the CAO and the mayor at some point.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely worthy of an additional discussion.
Yes, okay, because that's, the major part of our fundraising will be the granite benches, and that people could have their names engraved on the granite benches. They won't be a plaque, they'd be integral to and they would pay a certain amount per letter, and that would be part of our fundraising. And yes, There are 2 benches currently in the park that have family names on them, and since both have connections to the Lions Club, I felt we could probably talk to them and acknowledge their donation in 1984 in a different way. I'm sure they would be amenable to that. So, but anything else, yes, please keep us in that loop. Yeah, we'll work with you.
And you also mentioned that you're working with some local historians about the content that might go on those plaques. I'm sure that's going to be all really interesting about the early history of the town. And I wonder, I think there's 4 plaques, historical plaques planned. I wonder if one might go beyond the settler age and look at the sort of previous occupants and uses of this territory?
Indigenous,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. That is part of the plan. And as we were talking about, Councillor Shea, is that we will, my thought is that we would draw a focus group together to really look and design those plaques and to make decisions about what goes on it so that it would have all sorts of people involved in those plaques. And certainly nothing holds us to 4. That's what we put in the plan. That's what we budgeted for. But we're not experts on that. And so there are people who are, and yes, and thank you for raising that, because that is, we didn't present that, but that's part of the plan, is to pull a small focus group, because they'll be central to the importance of the park. Mm-hmm.
You know, I think your inclusiveness in this project is really phenomenal and it should be a model for other projects.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So well done. Thank you for those questions. Have you considered connecting with our Grey County Accessibility Committee?
Grey County approved the first set of plans we had for accessibility, and once we have the final drawings now, we'll be asking somebody here, I forget who took them last time. Was that you, Doug? No, it was the deputy mayor took them to Grey County Accessibility Committee. So we'll be asking them to go back, and Councillor Shea already raised an issue we need to address. Okay. So then we'll go back to them again.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Hergert.
Thank you so much. I'm a wicked supporter of the Lions, even though I'm not one, but you guys do so much
You
great.
could be.
Yeah, everyone, right? We're accepting applications. Thank you so much, though. You guys really do a tremendous job in our community of bringing everyone together and allowing us to celebrate with you, your group really just putting in all the effort and the time to make these things exciting for us. So thanks for yesterday, but thank you for building on this project. As Councillor Shea had mentioned, the inclusivity and the connection and making sure Virginia Burt came and listened to what people wanted from the community, and you know, the backdrop of the high school and get back to school on time and so on. Like, those are the parts of the community that we want to remember, and we want to bring people together if they're just stopping by on Highway 6 or if they've been here all their life. Like, this is the park for the community. So Councillor Shea had also mentioned a parking area. We do have a parking area just across the road on the other side, west side of Highway 6. There is parking at Conservation too, but it could be amplified for sure. As we talked about naming rights, this was something that maybe 2 years ago when we really kicked the project off, that the naming part of it would be the sales part of it, would be the fundraising part of it. So this will be a dialogue that could carry on, but it definitely was part of the original conception that this is how we're going to raise funds for the project. So I would like everyone to kind of keep an open mind on that. Let's see, Grey Roots might be another good source for the plaque and the information.
I've already talked to them, yes,
yeah,
thank you.
perfect. I do have one other question. The shade, the timber frame structure, is that something that we're going to build here?
We didn't add a frame structure in it because that really reduces the accessible space for people to use. And a couple of people have mentioned shade, but there certainly would be overhead awning kinds of durable awnings that we could add. And so that's already on the list to discuss with the architect. And the other idea is to put some, a timber frame at the front of the bridge that would have shade. But anyways, all of those will go into the mix, but that's one comment that we've heard, so we need to discuss.
The only other question I have is lighting across the bridge. Will we be doing any lighting across the structure itself?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
And we had the police chief talk about lighting and what kind of lighting, and then there's the dark sky. And certainly it won't, it'll be different than what's there now. It'll be less obtrusive, but light your way. So, and that's one of the reasons we didn't do a structure, was because the police were quite concerned about structures. Although apparently if you have blue lighting, it's better, I don't know. But we're not doing a structure, but we might do an awning.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to endorse everything that's already been said, and I'm not going to repeat it all, but for those that weren't in their attendance, when you look at the first meeting with Virginia, which was both on the bridge and in the art gallery, and it was just a group of representatives of the community that were asked questions, were asked what their passions were, what they thought you should look at, direction, etc. And from that, this has now been developed. And when I looked through it, and it was easier to see the other document that you distributed to council, Pat, and from that, you can actually see how much of that was captured and actually embedded in the design. And I'd like to applaud you for that, because I think, picking Virginia was a great decision, a good decision, to be able to bring all that together and to actually see it reflected is really kind of interesting when you sat there and listened to how not necessarily precise that decision, or sorry, that discussion was, and what it's evolved to. Congratulations on that as well.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you. Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
Thank you. Congratulations for undertaking such a huge project. I don't want to be repetitive in the things. I think my questions were accessibility, parking, and the dark skies, but you've covered all that. But I just want to congratulate you and thank you very much for stepping up and pursuing this project. It's going to mean a lot. And thank you for sharing that our park was full this past weekend, because that's big news. That's showing that tourism is actually active, and it's always good. And I'm sure that our community, the business community, has reaped the rewards of that. Thank you.
It's exciting.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Exciting times in West Grey, that's absolutely for sure. Well, thank you again for your delegation. We look forward to another delegation in a very short order. So well done, and congratulations again to the Lions Club. Thank you very much for that presentation. We are now on to our third and final delegation of the agenda, and this is with Brian Plumstead. Welcome. He's the Grey County Manager of Tourism. This is in regards to making the case for tourism presentation specific to West Grey. So we're very excited about that. Welcome, and please start your presentation. Thank you.
The blue button? We're there. Well, thank you, Mayor Robinson, members of council. I'm so pleased to be here, and it's great timing in that you've just had a presentation on such an exciting project. And certainly I've met with Pat just to talk broadly about the tourism linkages potential, so I applaud you. It sounds like such an exciting project. And if you've looked at my presentation, you think, how is he ever going to land this in 10 minutes? So I will be skipping through fairly quickly, hopefully pausing at a few slides, but really just talking about tourism at the big picture, what we do at Grey County, and then spending some time really at the most important level, which is here at West Grey. So often I like to start with what is tourism, and a lot of the things in this slide, I'm sure people think about top attractions and accommodation and the very visible parts of tourism. However, I'd like to share with you a very simple definition. This is what the province defines it, and actually internationally, tourism is simply all trips that are either overnight trips or same-day trips of more than 40 kilometers. So very simple idea, very simple concept. The trick, though, and the challenge is separating our tourists from our visitors. So you mentioned last night the park was full. Well, probably a portion of those were visitors. We don't always know who they are, what they're spending. So it's our job to try to break that down and to try to find out how many jobs, how many expenditures, those kinds of things, and to look at the benefits that they bring to our community. So internationally, tourism has been growing. It's one of the fastest growing industries in the world. Since the last recession, it's been growing between 6% and 8% a year, and that's a huge opportunity around the world. In Canada, the great news is last year was our biggest year ever in tourism, over 21 million arrivals. But the flip side is that we only grew 1%. So we're really not keeping up with the opportunity internationally. So Canada and Ontario are working very hard to try to encourage more people to visit. So of course the US has always been our biggest market. It still is at 14 million visitors. However, the relative share of our international travel has dropped. 20 years ago, they were about 80% of the market. Now they're down to 68. So 32% of visitors, international visitors, come from other countries. And that's huge because they spend a lot more money. They're coming to visit friends and relatives, and they're also coming to look at Canada potentially as a place to move to. So the UK is still our biggest international market, but China is probably going to overtake it this year or next because the Chinese market's growing at about 6% a year. We hope that continues. A lot of Southeast Asian countries and Europe make up the balance of our international travelers, and we see them all here in Grey County. So if we come now down to Ontario, unfortunately the most recent stats are from 2016. It takes the province a while to crunch them. 2017 should be out any time, but it's not quite here yet. So 144 million visits in Ontario in 2016 generated 26 billion in sales. So that's a huge number. And I'd like to point out that tourism is a very highly taxed industry. So out of that 26 billion, about 11 billion are taxes that flow to the feds, the province, and municipalities. That's largely a function of transportation is highly taxed, food and beverage, especially alcohol, highly taxed. So a lot of those things, and payroll taxes, because so much of tourism is our frontline human resources and our workforce. And the opportunity in Ontario is because we have 140 million visitors within a day's drive. So we really have a huge potential, and it's really Canada and Ontario's job to bring them into Ontario and then on to us. So I'll take a quick moment here. Tourism is a team sport. It's a bit of a complex ecosystem. Any of you, if you've been involved with tourism or if you're a tourism business, it seems like you have to get to know a lot of people to really make it happen. So on the left-hand side of this slide is all the partners, all the different levels involved in tourism, and on the right hand are our consumers, our visitors that we try to attract into Grey County, into West Grey. The biggest box on this chart is, to me, the most important. It's our local businesses, our tourism operators, our golf courses, our resorts, our food and beverage providers, our attractions, etc. Up one level is, of course, we have local organizations that support tourism, chambers of commerce, BIAs, and of course, I shouldn't leave out Lions Club and service groups. They do a lot of work in many of our communities. Then at the municipal level, West Grey, you're in the tourism business. You have I guess right now, a vacant position, but I understand that will be filled shortly. Someone whose part of their job is to work on tourism and economic development. Grey County, we'll talk a little bit about what we do in a moment, but we're kind of, I'd say, halfway up the food chain, and I think it's a very important part because we work both with our municipalities and then with provincial organizations. The Regional Tourism Organization 7, RTOs were set up back in 2010. Across the province, there's 13 of them. The one here is Bruce Grey Simcoe. They have an annual budget of about $2 million, and they do a lot of partnership and even partnership funding that we can access to help grow our tourism. Next up from them are sector associations, things like Festival and Events of Ontario, the Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs, Resorts Ontario. They represent members in sectors of tourism. And then there's an umbrella tourism organization, TIO, which is the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario. I happen to be on the board of directors. We do a lot of advocacy and working to try to support tourism and continued funding. And we host a big annual conference, which this year will be in Blue Mountain. So if anybody's interested in tourism, it's always a great time. We learn a lot. We have a lot of fun too, and we have awards and celebrate tourism. Next up is Destination Ontario, which is the provincial marketing arm for the province. They're funded by the provincial government, but they are an independent board of directors. And then the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport, which is our parent ministry, and Destination Canada at the top, who actually we've started working more with them in recent years of bringing people into Grey County through them. So those are all the partners, and it's very important that we're aligned and working together, and I'll get to how we do that at the county level in a moment. We try to bring consumers into our area. So most local municipalities will focus more on short-haul visitors from the immediate area, maybe within an hour or two drive. Grey County, we focus on mid-haul, bringing people from 2 to 3 hours away, and above that, we rely on the province and Canada to bring people into Ontario. So Grey County Tourism, a little bit about us. We are a department of Grey County. We're basically 3 full-time people. I'm the manager. We have 2 tourism specialists. And then we have students that join us in the summer, and they're out and about at many of our events, including ones here in West Grey. And our job really is to grow the Grey County economy through tourism development and marketing. We're supported by 2 groups. One is our Tourism Advisory Committee, and this is 5 mostly business people, mostly tourism folks from across Grey County that are self-nominated, and we select who they are, and they help us think more strategically about tourism and more the big picture, and also help us monitor our plan that we're delivering what we said we would do. And then we have 2 county council reps as well. We also have another important group, which is our municipal associates, those at the municipal level that work in tourism. So often they share the tourism with other things like economic development or communication. And we meet quarterly, a little more relaxed. It's more about networking, keeping in touch, understanding what projects we're working on, and then we work together on common interest. And I'll get to a big project we just completed in a moment. So at the moment, the seat is vacant for West Grey, but I was certainly talking to Laura Johnson. I think in mid-July, when that person arrives, we're certainly on the list to connect and to make sure we're working together. And I'm sorry, the slides got a little messed here. So we have a plan. It was approved in 2016, 4 pillars. One is really working with our partners, stakeholder engagement, working with municipalities, businesses, and that's we achieve, well, I'll talk about how we do that in a moment. Pillar 2 is destination management. That is about our marketing and product development in Grey County. Pillar 3 is market research and tracking, looking at the numbers, understanding the benefits, and communicating that, and that's my job. And then our 4th pillar is about resource allocation. We did a big reorganization of our tourism department, and now we just try to make sure we focus on professional development and hopefully being leaders in Grey County. So pillar 1, and a big project we did this year was Tourism Week, the importance of tourism in our communities. So we kind of swooped in and had a nice photo op with council. We also did quite a bit of radio, social media, talking about the benefits of tourism, but also how everyday residents can be a good ambassador or host, and just some ideas of how to do that. We host about 6 meetings per year on networking, education, and then we have a lot of communication through newsletters, digital, etc. Pillar 2 is our biggest one, really. It's all about our marketing, so our website is a huge part of that, our social media, and we also work in product and experience development. Cycling is a big initiative for us, food and beverage, culinary, and then arts and culture, which we haven't really done a lot on, but I'm very excited with what is happening here in West Grey, and especially in Durham and the Durham Art Gallery. And I've certainly talked to Pat and was a part of that process, I guess, when some of the visioning was going on about what could be happening. Coloring It My Way campaign is our main marketing campaign, and for the last couple of years we focused on local residents who tell their story about what they love to do in Grey County, and we serve that up through social media. And we had several folks from West Grey. Probably the most colorful was Oliver Solero. He's just lives large and does crazy things, and he was very popular. His YouTube video and a lot of his posts were really neat. And of course, we try to get out and attend events from Christmas in the country to other events, and attend some of the natural attractions around West Grey and share those out. And then my pillar is about trying to, again, look at tourism and unpack it. So I'd like to quickly go through really the 3 parts of tourism. Demand are our visitors, the folks who come into our communities, our suppliers, the commodities, the businesses, the activities that tourists undertake, and then of course the benefits, maybe most importantly, jobs, spend, gross domestic product, that kind of thing that accrue from tourism. So in Grey County, we get these numbers from the province, 2.7 million visitors in 2016. That's just domestic. We can't even measure the international visitors, unfortunately, at the county level. They can just do that provincially. So 2.7 plus million visitors, and big fact is that over half of them come for pleasure trips. So many other destinations in Ontario won't be so big on pleasure. So it really tells us that we're a huge destination of choice for people coming for vacation and holidays. Number 2 is visiting friends and relatives, VFR, about 30%. So a lot of folks coming to visit the family. And it's also why we want to make sure that we talk to our residents about what there is to do here. And then businesses at about 7% and other types of travel. We also have access to some more sophisticated tools where we can extract data from mobile phones and actually look at sort of who's coming, not anything as finite as whose people's names or exactly where they're from, but we get their postal code, and that tells us quite a bit about who they are. Are they families? Are they seniors? Where are they at, and what are they doing? So this is just like a heat map of several data sets across Grey County that we've put together. And then we have another data set where we can look at the businesses in Grey, how many of them are tourism related, and about 13% of the total is for Grey, 1,300 businesses. And these include businesses that also serve our local residents. So I'd just like to be very clear. A lot of that is in food and beverage, as well as our attractions, accommodations, transportation, etc. And the spend is about 333 million. And again, that's a conservative number because it doesn't include international visitors. And if we look at the breakdown of the spend, over 40% is food and beverage. So I really like to drive that home because a lot of people think we're not in the tourism business, but if you've got restaurants in your downtown, you most likely are, absolutely. Accommodation, transportation, retail. So again, 3 more sectors that everyday businesses help serve tourists. And then the final one is recreation entertainment. That's probably more of our attractions and things that visitors and residents like to enjoy. So we have over 8,000 jobs in those businesses, and out of those we can run that through an economic impact model that says about 2,800 of those jobs in Grey County are directly supported by tourist expenditures, and that generates about 3 million in municipal taxes at the county and local level. So to finish up, let's get down to the important part, West Grey. This is just a general slide. I'm sure it's nothing new to you, but really a lot, I think, of the residential development of, I just heard you say it's an exciting time in West Grey. I think at least some of that is driven by our visitors that want to, they've come here, they've visited, and now they want to move here. So residential development is on the grow. And of course, it supports heritage and quality of life in our communities. There's a lot of things we love to do. Maybe it's golf, visit the art gallery, that might not be here without that tourism support as well. And we talk about the direct impact of tourism, but also tourism touches some other non-traditional tourism industries like manufacturing, finance and real estate, agriculture. All of those will draw some of their revenues from the tourism industry. So using that same methodology and data set, we count about 142 tourism-related businesses in West Grey, about 11% of the total. A lot of those, again, are in those retail, trade, and other services, automotive services, those kinds of businesses, in addition to things like golf courses, accommodation, campgrounds, etc., that we tend to think of more as tourism businesses. And that supports 386 jobs, 12% of the total. So it's still an important part of your workforce, of your businesses across West Grey. And opportunities in West Grey, well, this is just a short list, but certainly the events that you put on have huge opportunity. The Saugeen River and related activities. Again, everybody coming to Grey County pretty much is looking for outdoor activities. So West Grey, you have it in spades. Campgrounds, you're home to several very large campgrounds that certainly have a lot of economic impact. Your downtowns, I call them the cash register of tourism. And again, when people are out in the Saugeen River or tubing or out on our trails, we want to make sure that we do bring them into our downtowns, whether it's for a meal, filling up the gas tank, possibly to stay overnight, whatever. That's really important. The Durham Art Gallery redevelopment, I think, is extremely exciting, a lot of creative opportunities, and it's things I think that are very consistent with what our visitors are looking for. Scenic drives, cycling and trail development, all of that, again, really important part of our product, and you have it in such great supply here in West Grey. Of course, a few challenges as well. Workforce is a huge one for tourism generally, is finding the people to do the jobs, especially as we do have a lot of minimum wage jobs that are part of the food and beverage and frontline industry. Tourism infrastructure, things like washrooms, parking lots, some of the things you were discussing. Yes, having creating a good product to deliver for our visitors and our residents. And our sustainability, something we're looking at our Tourism Advisory Committee, is just we're starting to get a lot of visitors, and some of our natural areas are verging on being overrun. So how can we manage that and spread people out and maybe encourage them to come in other seasons? Building stronger partnerships with local businesses is always huge. That's so important. And volunteer burnout, I'm not sure if that's a problem here in West Grey. From what I just heard, doesn't sound like it, but in many other communities across Grey County, a lot of our events are on a fragile basis because volunteers are getting tired and older. So I think that's it for me, and thank you for your time and your interest and your support of tourism through your staff and all the great things you're doing, and wish you all a great summer.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Brian. We absolutely appreciate your presentation, and you most definitely made the case for tourism in West Grey, so you achieved what you set out to do here. I just want to acknowledge that I did invite the president of the West Grey Chamber of Commerce here, Nella Monica Wells. I thought it was important that we have presence of the chamber here because you have identified it in your presentation. As well, an outreach was done to the Durham BIA through the council representative, Councillor Hutchinson, who's on that BIA, just to let the both agencies or organizations know that this presentation was on the agenda today and extend the invitation to attend. So that was really important. I know there will be further dialogue with them. One of the things that I wondered, under tourism opportunities in West Grey, would you consider, and I know this isn't a surprise to you because I identified it at the county level, but including horseback riding and horse shows, because those are national, international, local, and they're certainly part of West Grey.
Absolutely. I think we had this discussion. We're sort of trying to get
Yes.
some idea of where are the opportunities. Is it through local clubs? Are there some existing facilities we could help encourage? To me, that's a really great niche. And certainly the Saugeen Campground over Saugeen Bluffs Conservation Area has that niche. And so to sort of build on it, it's often great if you can build a cluster of activity. So absolutely, we'd love to do that. And maybe once the person arrives in mid-July, that might be really something we could work together on, is sort of teasing out what that looks like. And
Well, that's perfect. And it actually leads to a question, and that is, what more can West Grey or West Grey Council do to encourage tourism here locally?
well, I think you've got a person working on it, which is great. I think I understand you may be doing a strategic plan or economic development plan. So I think really thinking of tourism as a big part of that. And also, I think, just projecting your image out there as a great place to live and a great place to visit. I think in economic development generally, communities that really put their best foot forward and are seen as vibrant, creative places to live really builds that interest in moving there, becoming residents. Because really, to me, the ultimate goal of tourism is sort of growth in our communities. We love people to visit, and then we don't mind if they go home, but then we love to see them come back, maybe they become a seasonal resident and ultimately a resident. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Pat is a great example of that, who came up here, vacationed, has moved here, and has become such a wonderful volunteer in the community. So that's sort of, to me, that's the long game. And it's not just to think about tourism short-term as a visitor, but as part of your strategy of growing your community.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that insight. And one further question. I'm most interested in how we measure tourism. So I'm noting all of your sources, but I wonder if you're able to expand more in terms of how you capture the local data and how it stands up internationally.
Yes, that's a great question. And I'd say I've been here, I think I'm going into my 16th year, and I've been working on this for 16 years. It's a very frustrating journey. And to be honest, it's very tough to get data at the local level. And I want to be very open with council that most of these numbers are actually modeled. The number of businesses is an actual number. It's from the Canada Business Patterns data. But the number of jobs is sort of modeled based on several different data sources that come together. But it's really hard to get data at the local level. So we sort of look at Stats Canada. We look at where some of this data comes from is called Analyst. It's a tool that OMAFRA provides. It's available to everybody. But again, it's all modeled at the local level, but it's the best data source that we have. And then the Ministry of Tourism does crunch regional tourism profiles. That's the visitor data we get. And it's just barely hangs together at the county level. It's not available any lower than the county level. So those are some things, but now that we have access to mobility data, we're starting to look at where we can draw a geofence and just look over a year how many people came, and that gives us a rough idea of numbers and who people are. So we've just had access to that for a couple of months. Okay, well, so all of these things we're trying to, I guess, sort of put together to at least get, in my mind, an order of magnitude of our visitors. We don't know the actual number, but if we sort of have an upper level, a lower level that we can look at over time, great. That's about the best we can do.
Great, thank you very much. Questions, members of council? Councillor Hamilton?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. So my eyebrows went up. Mobility data. How do we collect that data? Where does it come from?
Well, first of all, I'll say it is a very expensive data source. So without RTO 7 support, we couldn't access it. We split a license 3 ways. It's $60,000. They pay the biggest part of that. So it costs us about $6,000 a year just to access the data. That's another set of data. And then the mobility data, the lowest end is about $7,000. You get certain number of credits. And every time you do a pull, that's a credit. So again, I think we for a couple of $1,000 we partnered with RTO 7. So it's still expensive, but it's coming down in price like everything as it gets more. But it's great. It's the first time we've ever had access to real-time data where we can get some idea of where people are from. And at the moment, we can't really tell how many people because it's a very small percentage of all the people who are there. But it's people who are on their mobile doing a search, and then that sort of pings. So that tells you that they're in, say, in Durham or in a campground or something.
Okay, so by doing like a search on a search engine, that generates this data. Okay, that was my question. Thank you. I had no idea.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hutchinson? I thought you were done.
Okay, I've got 2 more.
All right, well, you still have the floor then. Pardon me, Councillor Hutchinson.
I really like the maps that you've generated, all the different kinds of maps in Grey County, cycling, waterfalls, this kind of thing. Do we have an app with that kind of information about Grey County?
Great question. That's, in short, we don't, but we do have a very mobile-friendly website. And after a lot of looking, we decided just to make our website as mobile-friendly as possible. And we're actually working on a big overhaul of our website at present. Apps. Our take on apps is they're really only good if it's something you do all the time. Even if you go to visit a destination, if you're in a resort, you might download the app, and then when you're gone, it's over. But we just didn't feel that there'd be enough uptake for coming into Grey County to do an app. So we're really worked on our website, and also Google search, Google Maps we find is huge. So we're sort of doing an inventory to make sure all of our tourism businesses have claimed their Google Places listing and that they'll be found when people search.
Great, thank you. And certainly I enjoy those hard copy maps too. I enjoy holding them and circling things, and those work really well.
Yes.
And my third question is hotels and overnight accommodation. I know that's all changed over the past few years quite quickly. How do we encourage more overnight accommodation, and what kind of accommodation should we be looking for in a place like West Grey?
Well, that's a great question. To me, accommodation is really a private market function. I think municipalities can encourage development, but it's really a developer there has to be a business case. So I think Hanover is doing a hotel feasibility study at the moment, partially driven, I think, by the casino, but for a whole bunch of reasons. Short-term accommodations, Airbnb, there's sort of a love-hate relationship. There's good things about them, there's challenging things about them, but we know they do provide a lot of accommodation in our rural areas. And certainly, I think Grey Highlands is looking at regulating them because there are so many and there have been issues. But I think that at the moment it's probably fulfilling a real need probably in West Grey. I'm not sure exactly how many, but I know there's significant numbers out there. So to me, it's, I think, sort of let the market run with it and hopefully deliver it. And at some point, I just know I've been involved with feasibility studies before, and it's really a brutal number. Like in the summer, you can always be at 100%, but then the other, 7 or 8 months of the year, you may be running at 20, 30. Across Grey County, actually, the number is 50% accommodation for the year, and that's a bit low. And that tells us again that we need to build our shoulder seasons and to make that more.
Okay, you've concluded now, Councillor Hamilton? Okay, you're quite welcome. Councillor Hutchinson, please.
Yeah, I think Councillor Hamilton stole one of my questions about the app idea, but I think your information you gave is important as we go forward on revamping our website, that maybe we look at making it more mobile friendly rather than an app. I know Greyhounds has developed an app, and I thought maybe that's the route to go, but maybe not. Maybe that's something we need to look into a bit further. So thank you for that information. The other thing I just wanted to bring forward, and I know you're very big on the biking trails and that type of thing, and that's trails in general in West Grey. I think that's an area that we need to work on. We have some biking destination areas here. As far as our walking trails, we have some great walking trails, but we don't have anything really standardized or mapped properly. So that's definitely an area that we need to work on. I think will help us.
Absolutely. If I could just add, you certainly got some great conservation areas. My long-term goal, I would love to see all of us using a standardized methodology just for mapping and presenting our trails, because I find conservation areas do it one way, Bruce Trail does it another way, county forests do it another way. And so when the visitor gets to these various places, sometimes it's a little confusing. So that may be a long-term goal, just to work towards standard mapping and making it easier for our visitors to follow. And on cycling, absolutely, we're just about to, I think in the next 2 weeks, we'll be sending council and staff our Cycling and Trails Master Plan. We've sort of got a draft network in place. And one of the biggest issues was our consultants, and from day one, we said, how do we get from Durham to Hanover? And Grey Road 4 is just really not a great option. So I think we'll be looking at one concession south, sort of right by Allen Park, even though it's a bit of gravel. We figure that that's a better and a safer connection between the two communities.
Actually, concession 2, if we get the Kennedy Bridge open, I think would be pretty amazing. So that's, stay tuned.
That's another one, yes.
Other ways.
I know
Yes.
that well. I ride that
Absolutely. And now we have
frequently.
another reason for opening the bridge. So excellent. You still have the floor. Yes.
So just to add to that, one of the things that I think that we need to do, and maybe it's a county thing too, is consistency in signage. So that we are assigning properly and all doing the same thing for liability issues.
Yes, and that policy, again, that's been a long one coming. It's just about ready, and again, we'll be sending that out. Good. So that is signage on county roads, but also some direction for municipalities if they'd like to be consistent. And it's really a combination of green and white signing for directional, sort of on the county roads, with blue signage for tourism-related activities. And I know Councillor Herbert was in touch with me about the airport signing, so we certainly have some policies for airports in there as well.
So what I see is a great opportunity when that report comes forward, in the recommendation, I'm sure you'll do this anyway, but if you include whether it's a connection or a consultation with the lower tiers, and if they want to participate in that signage, that's something that can be brought forward to lower tiers. Certainly our clerk will put that on an agenda for discussion here, so we would very much welcome that dialogue. So, Councillor Hutchinson, anything further? Okay, Councillor Herger.
Lots of notes, but I'm going to try and be very succinct with those. Trail development was already touched on, and the signage, I believe, is crucial to actually allowing people to access those, right? So we talk about accessibility, but really the signage is part of that too. So I'm not sure if we, I really look forward to the signage policy coming from Grey County, and then being able to plan a budget around how much signage, and then having their standardized signage coming towards us. I know that we typically have Grey County do mapping, maybe 3 or 4 different GIS subsets each year. I do, like Councillor Hamilton, though, actually, I prefer the physical paper ones because those are the ones that I can distribute out to people, right? So if I go somewhere and I know that person really likes the art gallery, well, here's the art gallery thing. Oh, they like biking, here's this one. Waterfalls, you want some waterfalls. So to build our ambassadorship from this table outward is very important, but I really appreciate the actual physical mappings. Sometimes, you know, we get up here and we don't have great internet or something, you know, we don't want people to have that be a stumbling block. Last week, actually, I went to the under 40 networking group get together and I heard this geofencing term and I'm like, just like Councillor Hamilton, what's that? What's going on? But really it's when, as it was explained to me, it's when people come into Grey or Bruce County has a bit of an app going on this, it's Hi Bruce, but you go in and you search something and it comes back with, are you staying for a day? Are you staying for 3 days? How do you need accommodation? Are you hungry? Because you know, it's cross-checking the time. It's a way to gather data, but for the user, it's inviting the individual to come do something there. So anyway, I understand we have a Grey County tech group as well, and they're kind of just starting on this path, but that would be our West Grey, Mark Stovall is on that group as well. So that's the information I was hearing from him. Anyway, it was generating a lot of excitement at that group. But like you mentioned, you know, the data that we're getting back is really 2 or 3 years old. So it's hard to like measure right now what your success is. So it's very good to keep building ahead. You know, these words we haven't even familiarized ourselves with, but now we want to use them, right? We want to attract the visitor. Let's see. I also have VFR. You mentioned VFR, visiting friends and relatives, and airport signage, visual flight rating. That's what VFR stands for. Several acronyms around, but I spoke to Mr. Plumstead regarding airports and the distance that we actually try and draw people from. So if you're on Highway 6, where's the nearest airport? We would send them over to Soggy Municipal, but from here we don't have any signage. So we just want to get a bigger area with the signage there. Last week, we actually had a resident ask us about the small town, the historical locations, and whether we could sign those. Now, I mentioned to her that Grey County has signed those, but she also mentioned one that was not on a county road that has also been signed. So how do we get the same standardized signage down to the areas where we need them?
Well, I believe Meaford has done that, so they might be a good one to speak to, but I think my understanding was if you come up with communities that you would like to sign and you'd like to use the consistent sign, we manufacture them in our sign shop. So I think we can certainly provide those to you at the cost and you put them up on your municipal roads.
Very good. Okay, that concludes mine. Thank you.
Further questions from members of council? All right, well, thank you very much. Obviously, there's a lot of interest at this table for tourism. We want to make it successful here in West Grey. And I know with your assistance and overall the county's assistance and your staff, we will achieve that for sure. Looking forward to your next delegation here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thank you, members of council. And you're definitely the most engaged council. I've done, I think I'm in 6 out of 9. I got 3 more to go, but thank you for your interesting questions.
Thank you. We'll see you again. Appreciate that. Members of council, we just have a little bit more on our agenda. I'd like to go back to communications from mayor and members of council. So let's see if we can move through that, and then we'll be moving along through to staff reports. All right, so I'm going to start with our deputy mayor. Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, please.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. I didn't, it hasn't been an overly busy couple of weeks, but I did attend the Scrubs dinner with the mayor there last weekend. That was a great steak dinner, I have to say that one for sure. June 21st, I did celebrate with the RBC down in Ayton, their 150th. Enjoyed a barbecue with the firefighters as they hosted a barbecue that day as well. Last night, I was asked by the mayor to be in Priceville for their fireworks, so I didn't get up to Durham if anybody was looking for me. I was down taking care of our Priceville neighbors there with Grey Highlands, so they had quite a show, a lot of bands and stuff like that, so it was a good event. Just wanted to mention on June 27th, I think they're still looking for some teams, the Durham firefighters are hosting their annual golf tournament out at the Ferns, so I think they're still looking for a couple of teams, and I might be considering doing that one. Thank you.
Good, and thank you for representing me and council at the fireworks in Priceville. Really, really appreciate that. Hoping that at some point there may be a different day. They may stagger it. There is conversation about that, so we may be able to achieve attending both the Durham and the Priceville celebrations, but we'll see where those conversations go. Councillor Shea, do you have any communications? What have you been doing in the last 2 weeks?
Well, I've attended a number of community events, but I wanted to just highlight one experience I had, and that's that I was at the Durham landfill dropping off a bunch of brush, and the system was working very effectively. You know, just flagged me in and flagged me out and everything like that. But while I was dropping it off, there was an attendant who had the loader parked over to the side, and he was at the spot where they drop, the noose part where they drop off household waste. And he was going through the household waste, picking out the steel and metal, and he had pulled out a full-size dehumidifier. He said, this can't go in household waste. This is supposed to be over in metal, or this is supposed to be over in the refrigerator section. He was taking all that stuff and putting it into the front of the loader, and then moving it over to the right part of the dump. And I said, that's great that you do that. He said, this isn't my job. But I can't believe that people are putting the wrong stuff in the wrong place. So that was Isaac, also known as Richard Thomas, who was doing that. And I just wanted to give a shout out to him for going above and beyond the call of duty.
He's very amazing, so thank you very much for highlighting him. And yes, we have work to do in our landfills and our recycling, and that's just a very good example. We will get there, but I appreciate you highlighting your experience there. Anything further? All right, Councillor Herger.
So as I already mentioned, Grey County hosted an under 40 networking opportunity, lots of good ideas there. Mr. Plumstead just came in and talked about tourism. We actually have a really cool opportunity to highlight our area to young people that want to play in West Grey and around the area. And at the same time offering them job opportunities here. So a lot of the individuals that I met with were not West Grey born. They've been here for a few years. The conversation is, how do you know this is like where you want to live forever? And it was on one of these tourism slides, this is a base camp. You can live here fairly reasonably. You can recreate here, you can play, stay, work. We want the skills from afar to build ourselves better, bigger. Great. And that was really highlighted at this get-together, this under 40 get-together. There's individuals from Toronto that have sought opportunities for farming here. And really, well, what else do you do here, right? So it's this little buzz of, what are the new things you've seen? What are you interested in? It was a very good get-together. So thank you for Grey County for doing that. Actually, I've been outside playing a lot. I did make it to the dump one day. I had some stuff to do. And Richard is keeping that ship shape. It's really a beautiful dump. If you can have a beautiful dump, it is. Anyway, there is lots of farming opportunities. Stay safe out there. Everybody's farming and so on. Strawberry picking time. That's what I'll be up to later. Take care.
I just want to recognize Malachi is also doing a really great job, and Bill, so that we've got a very good group at our landfill division for sure. Councillor Townsend, please.
Thank you.
Yep.
I also attended the Scrubs and Scopes tournament, but actually as a golfer. I won't say we did well, but we had a heck of a lot of fun. The group comes from out of town, so we bring revenue in from out of town. That's why I invite the buddies from down there rather than locally in that particular and a couple of others. I think it's always good to remember that you don't always have to take an event with someone local, right? If you have friends that enjoy the area, bring them up, right? It's always worth it. The other thing was that I also attended the Maplewood Knox Church 160th anniversary, and the same day we also did the Memorial and Decoration Day at the Durham Cemetery, which was very well attended, and I understand the donations from that were also excellent that day as well to show support for the cemetery and maintaining it, particularly the chapel, which I know is a goal of the board to restore that to some degree. So if anyone's interested in donating, please feel free to do so. Canada Day, I don't know what to say. It was just absolutely astounding. It was a great pleasure to be part of the Lions setup team. I think, more people volunteering is always welcome. You find, they talked about volunteer burnout, and I do believe you see a lot of that around because it's the same people that always step up. So I encourage everybody to get involved one way or another. The thing that astounded me, other than the event and how it was put together, et cetera, was the attendance. Despite there still being a bit of parking space available, even as late as 9 o'clock, when you were down at the bottom and you looked up, there was almost no grass visible. And at 9 or 9:30, just before the fireworks, I don't believe I've ever seen that quite that full. So I think that was excellent. The vendors actually ran out of certain items, particularly the water and pop and that kind of stuff. It was hot, but beyond that, again, it shows you the numbers were there to support that. Coming up is July 13th, Art Fest / Street Festival happening on the Saturday, which is at the Credit Union parking lot. And so I encourage everyone to attend that. It's going to have longer hours this time, right? It's running from 1 to 10 or 11. It depends which advertising sheets you see. But anyway, it'll definitely be by 10. And of course, the week before that, you're getting all the Arts Fest activities in the different storefronts and et cetera. So again, it's going to be pretty busy coming forward.
Good, thank you. Councillor Hutchinson, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to add my congratulations to the groups that put on the July 1st celebrations. West Grey Lions did an excellent job. I was popped in there, also made it over to Priceville for a short period of time there, and the improvement committee there does a great job too, and it was well attended too. You know, now that the Lions group and Priceville at the same day, you know, you think that maybe one's going to affect the other, but there's people from all over. It's amazing where the people come from to these events. Thought it was interesting too that when I came back, it was later, so we just pulled in one of the side streets and watched the fireworks with my grandson, and the number of people in town that just got out and went to a walkway along the river or sat on their front porch and took in the fireworks, not even going to the event. I thought that was amazing that it really is a whole community thing that they take part and not necessarily even show up at the event. They just take part from their own backyard. So I thought that was sort of interesting. But I do want to say we appreciate the volunteers. Being on the Arts Fest committee, we are looking for more volunteers, and it's always an issue to get enough people to do these things, but we're lucky to have as many people step up and help out with all these events that we run in our area. So congratulations to them. And yes, July 13th, the Arts Fest is going from 1 o'clock till 11 is the official time. I know there were some changes in there, but it'll be in the town parking lot. It should be a good weekend.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hamilton, please.
This Saturday at Grants in Hanover, the Elmwood Community Centre Board is having a fundraising barbecue. I'll be there. Mayor Robinson, you'll be there too, and hope to see everyone come out and have some food with us.
Excellent. Thank you. I just want to say before we get off this item, I absolutely want to do a shout out to the Habermill Lake Cottagers Association. I was invited to their AGM, so I did bring greetings. And that was the first time, members of council, that I've been to an annual general meeting outdoors. And it was pretty nice. So here we are in West Grey doing something a little unique. And I also want to acknowledge the Memorial and Decoration Day that was hosted by the Durham Cemetery Board. It's just a wonderful event, and it's very significant to the community. So I think that was just a lovely event where that I participated. Did I see your hand up, Councillor Townsend, briefly? Thank you.
Just as an aside for yesterday, I was actually at the gate with Janice McKechnie, who was here earlier, and when we were chatting, there was quite a few cars that pulled up, not to park or see, but because of the cars, they wanted to know what was going on because they were from out of town.
Okay.
So again, if we can sign some of the events that are going on, we might actually be able to get them to attend and potentially spend as well as attend at those events.
Yeah,
but it was interesting, they just didn't know what was going on, so they stopped in to ask. So.
We'll work through the Lions and our other organizations and perhaps through Art Fest. So we'll do that. Absolutely good point to make, for sure. All right, so we're off item, what is that, 9? We're jumping all the way now back to item 11, which is business arising from the previous meeting. Anything, members of council? Oh, we have an item where there's no discussion, so noted. And then we're on to item 12. I'm wondering, would you like a 5-minute break? I'm getting an acknowledgement from some members of council. Let's take a 5-minute, and then we will pursue. There's no lunch order today, so this is an all-business day. So the agenda's going a little longer than expected, but we've got a lot of discussion and work to do here. 5 minutes, please. Thank you very much. We do have quorum here. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Miller. As lively as ever. Really appreciate your input on things. We're on item 12, which is staff reports. The first one is from the Director of Finance and Treasurer. Director Mighton, with regards to approval voucher number 13-2019, do you have any comments? It's a very high number this time around. Comments, please.
It does have some of our construction projects in there. We've had another payment certificate on the Bruce Street project, so that was a significant portion, and a couple other capital items in there.
With respect to calcium.
Some of our bridges and calcium as well.
Yeah, very good. All right, members of council, as per usual, questions with respect to this item? Councillor Hergert first.
On page 85, it says accounts payable to a consultant it's a numbered company for a grant application. I guess I was just curious what project that was for.
So that has come out of the Follis donation for the Lions Club. They had a consultant prepare the Trillium Foundation grant, the application that they were speaking of earlier.
Very good. The only other one I had was on page 95. It was $339. I believe this was the evening at the airport for economic development. I was curious, is that our share or is that the entire part? So that would be $339? I was anticipating likely just a share would be our West Grays.
Yeah, so that's just our portion of that.
Our share.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much.
It's always good to check. Other members of council? Any questions? All right, very good. So I do have a motion before me. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that the Director of Finance Treasurer be authorized to pay the accounts presented as voucher number 13-2019 in the amount of $1,283,632.47 of the Municipality of West Grey. Questions, comments? Calling the question, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. We have one additional item, Director Mighton, and this is dealing with the 2018 year-end supplementary assessment and write-offs. Supplementary, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is just an annual motion. This one's for the 2018 approval of all the supplementary and amid assessments, which is new assessment we've added to the roll, and then any write-offs for any minutes of settlement on there, so it's just the net amount. Just looking for council approval. And it's an annual approval that we get every year.
Supplementary questions, if you will. Nothing? All right. Moved by Councillor Shea, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby approves the supplementary omitted taxes and write-offs processed during the 2018 in the amount of $83,530.48 and in brackets $159.57 and a bracket for the local taxation and BIA area rates respectively. Questions? Comments? Calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. So that concludes the report for wait a minute. Is there anything further? No. That concludes all of your items. Thank you very much. Well done. Now, we do have a report from our clerk. There's a few items on. The first one is dealing with the City of Hamilton. Clerk Turner, please.
Yes, so the City of Hamilton Council is looking for support of its resolution recommending that any restructuring or modernization of local public health by the province take into account a number of principles which they've enunciated in their letter. The principles themselves seem reasonable enough, so I'm just looking for council direction.
Do we have direction, council? Anything? Do you want to receive and file? How would you like to handle this? Is there any action? Councillor Hamilton, please.
What are our choices for supporting this resolution? What would that look like, Clerk Turner?
It'd be basically a resolution supporting the City of Hamilton Council's resolution, just recommending those principles be part of the process that the province will go through if they can, follow through with it.
So I would move that we support this resolution, and we would send, who might we send a copy of this resolution to? It's on here? Okay. The Association of Municipalities Ontario, local public health agencies, Grey Bruce Health Unit, and local MVP. So I could support this resolution.
Okay, very good. Is there a seconder for this? Councillor Hutchinson? Okay. If you sign that over, I will read it. We have two more items following this. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby supports a resolution of the City of Hamilton Council recommending that any restructuring or modernization of local public health by the province take into account a number of principles, and further that a supporting letter be forwarded to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Association of Local Public Health Agencies, and the Grey Bruce Health Unit and local MPP. Questions? Yes, Councillor Hamilton.
Might we add Grey County as well to sending the support?
Yes.
Thank you.
Grey County. Seconder, Councillor Hutchinson, you're okay with that? Further? Calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Okay. All right. So the next item is dealing with the Township of Warwick. Seeking a resolution regarding enforcement of safety on family farms. Clerk Turner?
Don't have too much to add. Certainly, occasionally in the news, we've seen where there have been some activists enter onto farming properties without any authorization, and that in itself, obviously, for farms, or even if you're a private individual, you certainly wouldn't want anyone trespassing on your own property. So just seeking council direction.
Members of Council, how do you wish to proceed with this? Councillor Hergert.
I would like to actually see that we could support the resolution, and further that we would send some monetary donation over to the Children's Safety Village, which is here in West Grey, as a bit of a reminder and encouragement for the farm safety. It's not just for farm safety at the Children's Safety Village, but it is also it's safety in general. So I think to be supportive. Now, actually, as I say that, did we already send some money for this year?
I'm just dialoguing with our clerk, and I'm thinking that already took place.
Okay.
So our treasurer has left for now. So what I'm going to suggest is, if you would be so inclined to support the resolution as you're speaking about, save and accept the monetary, and we could follow up with that and bring that forward at a committee of the whole, perhaps, if that monetary donation hadn't been made.
Okay.
Okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
Good. All right. Thank you. So any other comments before a motion? Yes, Councillor Hutchinson.
I think this motion is really all about the farmers and feeling safety. There's a real movement out there to go away from people eating meat, and I think that's part of it. It talks about here that activists opposed to animal agriculture and the consumption of animals. And I think the farmers feel very unsafe when people are coming onto their property and protesting. It's fine to protest, but to go on private property or to enter barns that have restrictions and so on, I think is not appropriate. So I think we're just supporting the fact that they feel that this movement is causing safety issues for them. And so it's not really about farm safety in general, because we obviously have had some deaths recently in the area with children on farms, and that's another issue. But this is really having to do with, I think, the movement against consumption of animals on the farm. So that's what we're supporting here.
Okay, very good. So, yes, Councillor Hamilton.
And just to add that I have heard this concern raised in the community, and I have had started a conversation with staff about, I've heard concern about activists coming to community events on municipal property. So I'd like to further that conversation with staff and with council, just so that we're all on the same page. And I wonder if there'd be an opportunity for us to talk about this at committee of the whole, or how we might, as a council, talk about this issue that's really important to us. And I'd also be interested in hearing from our local police about our local experience and if they're receiving calls of this nature.
Sure, I think that's something that we can address on either the next committee of the whole or the one following, but hopefully we can get it on this agenda. So very good. Anything further before I introduce the item? All right, moved by Councillor Hergert, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby supports a resolution of the Township of Warwick requesting the Attorney General and MPPs work with agricultural leaders to find a better way forward to ensure stronger enforcement of existing laws or new legislation to ensure the safety of Ontario's farm families, employees, and animals. And further, that a supporting letter be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario, Attorney General of Ontario, Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, Association of Municipalities of Ontario, Rural Ontario Municipal Association, and local MPP. Questions, comments? Calling the question, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Clerk Turner, you have one final item on your report, which is from the Township of Armour. Is that Armour? Armour, yep, all right. However they wish to pronounce it. Would you like to take this item forward, please?
Yes, again, I'm seeking council direction. I know somewhere in the news or down the line I did hear, obviously I think it's from the Union of Beer Store Employees, that there's apparently an existing contract between them and the province that's supposed to go on for a number of years yet, and threats of, if that contract is in essence broken, that there could be an extensive lawsuit. And I'm not sure, would that extend to municipalities if they invoke this type of legislation? By association, would municipalities be part of that lawsuit? Interesting question, I think. But just after I'd completed the agenda, my report, I did provide you with a copy of correspondence from the health unit. They also speak to this issue. The legislation would include a plan to permit municipalities to designate public spaces for the consumption of alcohol, extend retail hours, and increase availability in convenience stores. So from the health unit perspective, they're kind of encouraging if there could be a consistent approach or policies and procedures across both Grey and Bruce counties, whether that's achievable or not. Obviously, the consistency is sometimes easier to enforce as opposed to every single entity having different policies and procedures. But they did indicate they're willing to work with municipal partners, and welcome the opportunity to come to speak to that issue if council wishes.
Questions, comments? Councillor Townsend, please.
The first thought that came to mind was whether or not anything is happening at the county to actually look at this across Grey Bruce. If the public health has the issues they do, and I believe them to be valid, then it would make sense to start there and then proceed accordingly. But I wasn't sure whether anything was happening at that level. Maybe you could share some information there?
Yeah, I think we'll, at the next county council meeting, I'll dialogue with my counterparts and see what report I can bring forward. You're welcome. So, members of council, yes, Councillor Hamilton.
I'd like to receive this for information and look forward to further conversation conversations.
Okay, appreciate that. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Townsend? All right. We'll just receive it. Do we need a, oh, no, the clerk said we don't need to vote on that. I would have voted, but I defer to our clerk for that. Yeah, it's unanimous. It would identify. All right, that's fine. So we are now off the staff reports, and we're dealing with the bylaws at this stage as paper is flying right across my desk here. So we're on proposed bylaws for first and second reading. We're going to start with proposed bylaw 48-2019. So I'll wait for that. Okay. Okay. Put these in order for me. I'd appreciate that.
First one's the last one. There we go.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. So let's introduce our first bylaw, moved by Councillor Hergert, seconded by Councillor Shea. Be it resolved that bylaw number 48-2019 being a bylaw to authorize entering into a Durham Arena concession stand agreement between the Municipality of West Grey and Denise and Philip Grove be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Questions, comments? Councillor Townsend.
I have a concern regarding the indemnity area again. We very loosely use the word premises throughout as to when persons, yet undefined, are on the premises or in or about the premises in some cases. And without having a full definition of what premises means, leads us, I believe, to some exposure about whether or not we're going to get what we're asking for. And that's really the concern, right? So my suggestion is that similar to the way we deal with facilities in the Section 1 grant, we should deal with premises. So when we use the term concession premises, in brackets, we'd put the premises in quotes, and then you don't have to change the rest of the document, but it becomes very clear what's being referred to. If we don't have that, I think it's a little vague as to what we mean by premises, because this is premises within premises, right?
We're always striving to improve our documentation, so that is a very welcoming in my opinion. I'm just looking to our staff, the CAO and clerk. They're in the affirmative on that. So for this particular bylaw, we'll put as amended. Okay, I'll just do that now. Thank you, Councillor Townsend, for that. Further from anyone? Oh, Councillor Shea, please.
So just two lines up from that, under garbage disposal, we are instructing that all food and beverages sold shall be single service and sold in disposable wrappers or containers. I think, we're moving towards a mindset and an era where disposable containers is not the best case scenario, and if there was any way of using recyclable containers or not even to sell them in containers at all, that would be something to look at down the road. But we conclude that paragraph with saying, where at all possible, products shall not be sold in glass bottles or containers. Could we extend that to say will not be sold in glass or plastic bottles or containers? It is voluntary because it does say where at all possible. So it's only an encouragement, it's a should, not shall.
I see where you're going with that. I do not have a difficulty. Staff, could you comment? I'm going to suggest that our CAO just provide a comment on that, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And to your question, Councillor, I actually agree that it is voluntary, so it may encourage them to look for greener alternatives, so I'm comfortable with that added.
Okay, good. So we'll just, we'll include that as amended. We'll just note that other section, and we'll go through the document to ensure that that's addressed.
And we're using the same document for the next bylaw as well, right?
Yes, but at that time, I would just ask you to clarify it during that section, but that's good. So now, are members of council clear on the amendments, and are you all happy with them? Any comment before well, I've already moved, it was already moved, seconded, and read, so we do have the amendments. So with nothing further from members of council, I will call the question. As amended, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. All right, so, thank you. Bylaw 49-2019, moved by Councillor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Be it resolved that bylaw number 49-2019 being a bylaw to authorize entering into a Normanby Arena concession stand agreement between the Municipality of West Grey and Steve Lance be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Clerk Turner, could you just identify those amendments again, and then that will be for clarity.
So similar to 48 of 2019, where it states concession premises, there'll be brackets, the quote-unquote premises, and then it'll be followed through. Whenever that reference is made, you know that's what it's referring to. And then the other section regarding glass or plastic bottles or containers.
So the mover and the seconder, which is Councillor Hutchinson and Councillor Hamilton, are you fine with those amendments? All right. Anything further, members of council? Calling the question, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. And then I would just say to staff, any further agreement, we'll just be very cognizant of the amendments that we've made here to be incorporated in additional agreements. Okay, so I think that would be best. Item 50, moved by Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Shea. Be it resolved that bylaw number 50-2019 being a bylaw to approve and authorize the execution of a lease agreement between the Municipality of West Grey and the Durham Agricultural Society, and in brackets, repeals bylaw number 46-2019, pardon me, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation and engrossed in the bylaw book. Questions, comments? Councillor Townsend, please.
In the agreement, there was a reference to a document that was registered separately, done in March of 1952, and neither of these match that. So my curiosity is to why these are here, and somehow do they actually translate into the same thing as the March reference document?
So we'll start with Clerk Turner and see if our CAO has any comment on that, or vice versa, as you wish. Okay. Madam CAO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I understand that the historical document was provided as a result of a request from council. Speaking to the current document, I do know that that our former manager was working very closely with the Agricultural Society, and they are in agreement with this document. So I don't know if there should be a relevance to the historical one. All I know is that the current one is the one that the society is in favor of.
Okay. Do you have a supplementary to that?
Yeah, please. What I believe council asked for was the March 3rd, 1952 document that was called instrument number 6912. So that was what they asked for, but I can't see any reference to either the date or that instrument number on the historical, so I'm not quite sure why they were provided, I guess was my original question. I understood your response, Madam CAO. That wasn't an issue, but I don't know if that's the best that we could get or whatever. And I do agree the parties are in agreement that
Yes.
it seems okay.
Yeah.
We just don't know what that means, right?
Well, we have an agreement before us. Clerk Turner?
I can't categorically state what I'm saying is correct, but I suspect this is the bylaw. This bylaw was passed February 4th, 1952. So I'm suspecting that instrument might be the registered bylaw reference to this. I can't say 100%.
Okay. Good. 1952. Further, Councillor Hamilton.
So I think the concern was that we were referencing an instrument that we hadn't seen. That was the concern. So perhaps, can we remove this paragraph altogether, would be my question. The reference to the leasee refirms, or could we secure that document so we can see it?
Interesting. How do you wish to proceed? Madam CAO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I know it was a challenge to secure the historical document that's attached. So removing the reference in the current lease might actually clean that up. I'd have to go back to the society to make sure that they're comfortable with that, that edit.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. I think that would be wise. So thank you. And then my other question was, we talked about, I noticed this reference to setting up for the 2019 Fall Fair, but this is a 10-year contract. And so we talked about whether this should be a one-year contract as we had this reference to the Fall Fair. So just some clarity about it being a 10-year contract, but item 7 only lists 2019 Fall Fair. So should the contract be a one-year contract? Or are we committing to 10 years of setting up for fall fairs? That's my question.
Madam CAO.
Thank you for the questions for you, Madam Mayor. That is intentional. We do want a 10-year contract. We want to do a one-year setup commitment. We will revisit that with the society to see what that looks like for resource implications. So we are agreeing that the society would just like the comfort to know that staff are available. What the extent of that is, we'll determine that this year, and then we'll bring back, whatever that looks like for the balance of the 10 years.
Okay, so what I'm wondering, members of council, I know I introduced this already, but I think there's merit in tabling this. So Clerk Turner, if I just ask for a motion to table, would that be fine? And I don't have to worry about how I introduced this already. Okay, good. We always like our procedure, especially me. Councillor Hamilton, would you move the table and to table this item? Councillor Herger, will you second that? Okay, any questions on that, members of council? Good. Calling the question to table this for further dialogue with the society. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. I will not sign that document. I will sign this one. Thank you. All right. So we are on number 51. Let me just circle that and note. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that bylaw number 51-2019 be a bylaw to provide for the adoption of the estimates of the sum of the sums required during the year, to strike the tax rates, and to provide for penalty and interest in default for payment thereof for the year 2019. In bracket, repeals bylaw number 41-2019. End of bracket. Be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Questions? Comments? Councillor Hutchinson? Yes.
Yeah, just, we had this discussion before, but I'm just curious, is there any movement or any more information on the change in the commercial, BIA, commercial vacant and vacant land tax rate? It was the county that's coming from.
Yes. Director Maitan, please.
Yeah, I believe the county is waiting for the province to open up an intake of being able to present that for regulation. So
that is correct.
Yeah.
Further? Councillor, I saw a hand over here. Councillor Townsend. Okay.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering why the 1.25%. That seems pretty extensive if that's per month. I understand it's a deterrent, but if you've got a real situation, are we actually putting a burden on, which means it's not possible to collect, and therefore we're going to be doing more write-offs? So it's actually working against us rather than for us? Comments would be appreciated.
Yeah, it's fairly standard. That's the maximum allowable. I think most municipalities do charge 1.25%. The idea is that we are not a financial institution, and we would rather that you find alternate ways if you're not able to pay your taxes, because we have already spent the money on our services to be floating it. Once it comes down to, if the property does get down to register for tax sale, it is recoverable in that tax sale process.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Shea.
Following up on the earlier question about vacant commercial, did I understand that the question seemed to be about the BIA portion? Is that also only open from time to time via the province?
Because we have a vacant unit and the BIA area is eligible under that. So it's under that same regulation that if we get rid of the commercial vacant unit application, then because otherwise we've charged them for the full commercial rate and they've applied for a vacant unit.
Okay, so they're linked. If one changes, they both change. Okay, so to you, Madam Mayor, do I understand that the farmland rate has gone down?
By 1%.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so that's, I think, a great improvement, because I think those farm property prices were increasing faster than residential property, and so therefore the burden was shifting, and that by reducing that, I think at the county level, that helps the farmers. I wondered also, we've talked a lot about affordable housing, and we have a very high tax rate on the multi-residential, and I don't really know what the logic is behind that. Multi-residential is one of the most affordable forms of housing in the community, especially rental. I know that the owners of those businesses are running them as businesses, and so maybe we're thinking we should charge them more because they're capitalists as opposed to homeowners, or something like that. But I wonder if we might not consider asking the county to find a window to reduce that as well. Or maybe I should ask, is there any discussion from the other municipalities and other treasurers about this issue?
I know they discussed several, multi-res being one of them with nonprofit, or not nonprofit, but affordable housing. And is that the best method to get it to the tenant? Will it be passed on? But they looked discussions around industrial rates as well, and commercial, and so I know there was, I think in the county's next tax ratio discussion, they'll probably be looking at several of those. The big thing is the funds still need to be raised, so once you start shifting it, it's the largest taxpayers, your residential taxpayers, so off of one category moves it on to there, so it's finding that balance of along with making sure the policy that you're instituting is going to achieve the results that you're after. Will it get that reducing the multi-res, will it get passed on to the tenant in reduced rents, or is it just into the coffers of the landlord?
Yeah, interesting approach.
So if that discussion is going to happen at the county at some point in the future, would there be any way that we could have input into it? Like, I haven't thought the whole issue through, and I don't necessarily have a position on this, but I do think I'd like to participate in the conversation.
Well, I would like that at the local level, and then we could have that discussion, and then there can be, whether it ends up being a formal resolution from this council or something, input at least. So Director Mighton, between you and myself, and also the Deputy Mayor who serves on County Council, let's get an idea of when that report will be coming to County Council, and we can have that discussion, let's say, prior to that. Here at the local level. I think that's really positive, and then it would be a message from West Grey up to the county. I think that's a fantastic idea. Would that work, Director Mighton? Okay, I will. I'll follow up with that today as well with my colleagues. It was Councillor Townsend and then Councillor Hamilton, please.
Yes, I would support that as well, because first of all, we don't have a lot of affordable housing, and whether or not any savings is passed on to the tenant or not, the rents are kind of already structured by formula. So I'm not sure that's the critical part, but you might actually be able to get people that either don't lose as much if they go into affordable housing, but also still are able to turn around and encourage them to do more. And there's that balance that you want. But right now, it's not large enough for us to have a serious negative if we shifted some of those dollars, I don't think anyway, based on what I believe we have for affordable housing. So I'd like to see that discussion go forward on recommendation resolution to the county too.
Well, we're an innovative and modern council. I think this is worthy of discussion for us for sure. So does that impact, Director Mighton, on this bylaw?
No, tax ratios are not something that we actually set at this table. It is done at the county level. So while you take our input up to there, it is not something that would change this bylaw. We are bound by those county set tax ratios.
Good. So thank you for that clarity for the members of council, but also anyone that is viewing this. I think it's really important to keep that open information and dialogue going. Further questions? Anything? Yeah, oh, pardon me. Yes, of course, Councillor Hamilton.
So our residents will learn of the impact of the tax rate when they get their new tax bill coming soon. And wouldn't this be a great opportunity to communicate to our residents, perhaps with our new communicating staff member? So I'm just wondering if there's a plan in place, or if there's an opportunity we can grab to communicate the wonderful budget that we passed and how we're planning on spending the money this year. And I think it's a good news story that we should share with the tax bill. So I'm looking to our CEO for any future communication plans around the tax bill.
There will be lots of communications on every topic of West Grey, but Madam CAO, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor. This position is one of the most anticipated positions of my
Yes.
entire career, and we will have,
Yes.
I've got a folder already started for the incumbent. So the timing is very good. Jonathan Zettel starts with us on Monday, and the tax bills go out at the end of July. So he'll have 3 whole weeks.
Yeah, see, well done. It's absolutely exciting in West Grey. Continue to say that, and I absolutely mean that. Any further questions? I am going to call the question then, because I have read this. Calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Okay. So we just have one final bylaw, which is our confirming bylaw. Moved by Councillor Shea, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that bylaw number 52-2019, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the July 2nd, 2019 council meeting, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions? See none. Calling the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. So we're off bylaws now. Item 14, new business. Is there any? Councillor Townsend.
Sorry, not new business, but I did notice that the treasurer had her hand up potentially to say something that you might still want to hear.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yep,
I
please.
was just going to bring to, I don't know if everyone was aware, the reason the tax rate bylaw was there is there's 2 new rates that were missed on the previous one, commercial small scale on-farm tax rate and the industrial small scale on-farm tax rate.
Yes.
So that was the purpose for bringing the bylaw back, was just that we do not currently have assessment in either of those, but if there's anything that comes throughout the rest of the year, we may need that rate. And it's the education portion that's different on that. It doesn't change our total tax. It's the education. It's the same commercial rate. It's just on the education portion that they have isolated that as a different. That was just for information.
Good. No, thank you for that information, and thank you, Councillor Townsend, for directing my attention over there. I appreciate that. Councillor Hutchinson, please.
Can I ask a question on just regarding that?
Yes.
So how is that assessed, the commercial or industrial on farms? Like, that's a popular thing these days.
Yeah. So it'll be, there's a new category, C7 if it's commercial. So if they've built, the market stand or something, then the building permit triggers the assessment office to go out, and that if it was a new construction in my scenario here, and it would possibly qualify then for that commercial assessment. And then same with the industrial, as if they're processing, taking something off the farm, processing it and moving it in. Some of them are the large silos, those are industrial, they're processing it, moving it, kind of thing.
So when you're talking about assessment, like we have a committee or someone does that, it's not MPAC? It is MPAC? Okay.
Yeah,
so then
MPAC does all of the
MPAC.
assessments, yeah.
Okay.
If the we send our building permits in to MPAC, again, for new construction, but they do inspections in the various areas over, several years, but if they come across anything that's out there as well, it's brought to their attention, and they, same with zoning applications, those types of things also potentially trigger it, as if they've gotten a zoning change to allow for a certain use, then that might change their assessment, because now that they've been recognized for that.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Herger.
So let's assume someone has avoided the building permit part of it by building something under a regulated size, under a 10 by 10, let's say for a market stand. Would they also be in this on-farm commercial scale of doing business? Or, really my question is, how do people avoid this? How do they either get paying and avoid the multi-year pileup of commercial status when MPAC comes around? Maybe 4 years from now or so, then they've got this buildup of commercial tax rate that's owed. So, other than building permits, and I know how that goes after a building permit, there's final and MPAC comes around for a visit. But if there's something that doesn't garner a building permit, then how does someone get compliant right away that first year so that there's not a buildup several years later?
And part of that, I believe the small scale on-farm status does have minimum or max, like it has to be big enough, otherwise it's really a home occupation, which is allowed in a lot of our, so there is different levels before that would trigger in there. If we become aware of one, we can let the impact know, and they can go out and do an inspection. Otherwise, if they're out in the field and they become aware of something, then they will take a look and come up with values. And
So I guess because these are two new areas of taxation, could we also communicate that out to residents when we send this tax bill? I think that would be appropriate.
Yep, very good. Anything further? Okay, very good discussion. Item 14, new business. Anything? All right. Item 15, addendum. Clerk Turner, any addendum? All right. Item 16, this is a notice of motion, direct motion. Councillor Shea.
Yes, I'd like to enter a notice of motion for our next meeting, which I've handed off to Clerk Turner, and I'm moving that the August 27th, 2009 Committee of the Whole meeting be held at 7 p.m. in Ayton, and the September 24th Committee of the Whole meeting be held at 7 p.m. in Neustadt, and that consideration be given to holding future meetings in Elmwood and the former townships, and that an informal one-hour meeting be scheduled just before the Committee of the Whole meeting for residents and members of Council to discuss issues of local concern.
Thank you very much. So you've entered this as a notice of motion. So it's read in this agenda, and the intent is to be put on our next agenda. Okay, thank you. Clerk Turner, could you provide some
Just to clarify, it will be put under new business as for the next council agenda as per the procedure bylaw.
And at that time, you can address. Okay. Thank you. All right. Any other notice of motion or direct motions? All right, thank you very much. Item 17, closed session, incomplete items only, so that's an NA. Item 18, matters arising from closed session, incomplete items only, that is a NA. We're now on item 19, question period. Mr. Miller, do you have any questions? All right, here we go. Oh, take your time, please. Yes. Yes, it was a long meeting today, absolutely. May I give you this? Okay, thank you. You're perfect, you got the mic on.
No, thank you, Mayor. This may not be all questions. The first item I came across here was the request to support a resolution opposing beer and wine and liquor sales in corner stores. That's one that council may have to consider seriously, because we do have a business in West Grey, a corner store that legally sells liquor, beer, and wine. If you vote for this resolution, you're voting against a local business.
Good point. Thank you.
You mentioned trails. A nice trail would be, from Hanover to Durham on the north 2nd, but you mentioned the problem there, so we'll just have to keep that one in mind.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The other thing was, back in minutes from some meeting, there was a bit of a discussion about composting. The suggestion was made by the public, I guess, that the composting business could be set up at the Elmwood Community Center. Well, there's a bit of a problem there. The Elmwood Community Center is not in West Grey. Now, I don't know if Brockton would want you lugging stuff over there or not. Secondly, the majority of your composting material would come from the general area around Durham because that's where the majority of the people are. Why not put if you're going to have a composting business, why not put it at the Durham landfill site? There's somebody there and then move the snow and keep that area clean. Whether or not you do that or not, I don't know. Apparently Kincardine has a great setup, but that's what I've been told.
Okay. Well,
So,
on that particular one, I know exactly what you're speaking of. That was a delegation that we had at Committee of the Whole.
Yeah.
And so the minutes are attached for us. But we did have a discussion sitting as committee that we would look at having that at one of our West Grey facilities. So.
Well, I'm just putting it out about the question.
Yep.
So, now, what could affect things in that respect, when the hens come, they might get rid of some of this stuff.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate your comments, and you know that for a fact. There's no one else in the audience, so I'm not going to call it out again. Item 20 is Municipal Act notices. There are none. Before I call the adjournment, I just want to say thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, for the Warriors pin. I will wear that. I really appreciate that. So item 21, adjournment. Do we have a mover and seconder? Councillor Hamilton? Time delayed there, but Councillor Hutchinson, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy the summer day.